Welcome back to the Mildew Twang Outdoors podcast, where we chronicle our time spent in the Delta, the swamps, the piney woods, and beyond. Here, we share our experiences and stories ranging from simple country living to lesser-known stories of American culture and what all of this means for us as Christians in today's world. Last week, we discussed the 2022 and 2023 duck season regarding a scouting trip as well as a youth duck hunt that shifted my perspective on life and on salvation. This show barely scratched the tip of the iceberg regarding all of the shared experiences between the men in our duck hunting group. This week, I've invited several folks over to talk in more detail about the past season, as well as to share a few stories from their own lives. Turkey Joe, Dr. Tim Mims, a.k.a. Preacher Man, Jamie Hilbin, and Papa Nichols will all make special appearances. Due to the complications of life and busy family circumstances, I was not able to invite everybody over all at once for a roundtable discussion, but each man was able to come interview individually as time would allow. As such, please bear with us as we tell their stories. You are going to hear tales of comedic relief, life and death circumstances, and how the brotherly love between Christian men can lead to a life of fulfillment through Christ. In addition, you're going to hear about East Point Baptist Church, as well as a new business venture taken on by our very own resident butcher. Kick back your lazy boy and grab some popcorn because our show is about to start. I would like to welcome Turkey Joe here on the podcast. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jay. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. You're a tremendous individual, a great mentor and a leader.
Stop it.
So, Turkey Joe, now that I've got you here, I would like you to tell me a little bit about yourself briefly, where you grew up, how things played out in your life to bring you to this point.
All right. Well, I grew up in South Mississippi. Started out squirrel hunting with my dad when I was young. Didn't really start big game hunting until I was a teenager. But the most important thing that happened in my teenage years is I was saved and redeemed when I was 17 years old, and hadn't been the same since. The Lord's been dealing with me and working on me a little bit more every day since then. So when I moved over to Alabama is when I really started duck hunting. You know, we live right here next to the river swamp, so I enjoy mostly the social aspect of it. You don't have to sit down and be quiet. You get done early in the morning, and it's just a lot more fun than sitting around waiting on a deer to show up.
Yes, sir.
So how did you become Turkey Joe?
Some of my buddies gave me that name. I don't know. I like to turkey hunt.
Now back to our duck hunting here. This past year, we spent a lot of time with Jamie Hilbin, owner of 3 Hours Butcher. He's a good fellow. So we spent time with Jamie, and we spent time with our preacher, Brother Tim, Dr. Tim Mims, at East Point Baptist Church. From what I understand, talking with him, it was his first year duck hunting.
Yeah. He's always been a deer hunter, and he actually grew up in the Mississippi Delta and some of the best duck hunting that there is, but he just never went. So he enjoyed himself. He started this year. He liked it so much he bought him a new shotgun.
Yes, sir. There was one day where we had to check the pattern on that gun, and it turns out it was shooting a little bit high. He had a tight choke in that sucker.
Yeah, we was patterning it for turkey season this year.
Yeah, and I'll take blame on that hunt a little bit. That hunt, we set up on a hole. Well, the woods were flooded that day. I don't remember how high the water was on the river, but where we typically stand on dry ground, I know my waist was underwater.
Yeah, and if your waist is underwater, it's up to my neck.
Yeah, that was a rough hunt. I set us up right on the middle of the hole, and they were trying to land on our heads. I mean, you could have shot a cylinder bore choke, and you wouldn't have killed a duck.
I think I was shooting cylinder bore, and I didn't kill anything.
I think you were the one that killed the duck over the trees that day.
Well, it doesn't happen much, so I didn't remember.
Now, look, what you folks out there need to know is that if Turkey Joe shoots at you, you're probably going to die. Last year, he shot, I swear, 85 yards at a woody.
I don't think it was near that far.
Maybe not, but you shot a bird that I never would have contemplated shooting, and that sucker was stone dead before he hit the water. It was incredible.
That's the good thing about shooting a shotgun. You get lucky a lot more than a rifle.
So, Joe, is there anything from this past season or two that you want to, I guess, highlight from duck hunting? I know the first episode of the duck hunting series here, we talked about our youth hunt. I don't know if there's anything else to be said about that hunt or not, but
Well, every time I get to go hunting with my boys is a lot of fun. That particular hunt, we went on your dad's place over there, and I always appreciate him letting us hunt. There was a lot of us in there, and it's always a hoot whenever we get all those boys trying to get them set up and all pointing in the right direction. And of course, it takes a lot of effort. We make sure that they're safe first thing. But once we get everybody lined out and we know everybody's shooting in the right direction, I just sit back and laugh most of the time. I really enjoy hunting with all those kids.
yes, sir. That's the most fun I've had all year, I think, is the youth hunt there. And taking folks that aren't necessarily able to take themselves, whether it be children or other folks in their
Or
lives.
preachers, yeah.
Yeah, the preacher. I'm impressed that he can make his way through the woods the way he can.
Yeah, I'm glad he's a good preacher. I'm glad he doesn't have to make a living duck hunting.
And he's quieter than Dad out there walking. Dad's more like a big Sam Squatch.
Yeah. We won't talk about your daddy's stealth skills or lack thereof.
Hey, I kill just as many as y'all do.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You don't shoot half as much as I do.
I'm too busy laughing at
No,
y'all.
because you're too daggum tight. You don't want to buy them shells.
That's true, too.
If he doesn't shoot half as much as us, though, when he kills as many birds, that's a pretty good record.
Well, nobody shoots as much as I do. I just like to shoot.
Your boy, your youngest boy there, cracks me up in the dove field. He shoots 3 shells every time he pulls the trigger.
Yeah, and if I didn't have a plug in his gun, he'd shoot 5 times every time he shot at a dove.
Yeah, he came and told me one day, Mr. J, I shoot 3 times because if I don't shoot, I can't hit him.
Yeah.
And Daddy puts 3 shells in my gun, so I have to shoot him.
Yeah, I know. He's killing me. I think I'm going to make him start hunting with a double barrel.
Yes, sir.
So what's the funniest thing you happened during this year's duck season?
The funniest thing that happened? That's probably Jay getting water in his waders out there on a 15-degree morning.
How deep was the water that day, Jay?
I know he was on his tiptoes, that's for sure.
Yeah, we had an experience where we had a run-in with somebody, an official of the state. We did nothing wrong. We were just getting checked, a routine check, and we were told that there was an adjacent hole on our property that had birds when this individual pulled up to check us. So we made the executive decision, right, the official leadership in my mind said, we're going to go out and hunt this hole a couple days from now and hopefully kill those birds. So a cold front rolls through with great anticipation. There were visions of teal and other puddle ducks in my head flocking into this hole.
How many decoys did you throw out there?
Oh, shoot, I threw a dozen out
All
there that
of
day.
them?
All of them. Yeah, so with great visions of teal and other puddle ducks falling into this hole, I got out there with Joe, Jamie, and the preacher.
What was the temperature?
It was about 20 degrees.
Yeah.
And who was smart enough not to go that morning?
What do you mean smart enough? You mean lazy enough? Yeah, you wasn't there. I'll give you that.
Well, I wasn't there.
No, you slept in that day. Right, so the decoys get thrown out.
The
lights-
decoys get thrown out in about 7 foot deep water.
Hey, it was a beautiful place. So
Yeah, it was.
we walked out there and checked it waist deep, and it was getting deeper. I threw them out of negligence, thinking that I'd be able to skirt around the edge of this pond and pick them up. So I don't think, we killed one bird. Jamie killed one bird that morning, a hen, and didn't see any other birds close enough to even warrant lifting the guns hardly. It was a slow day. We go to pick up the decoys, and I ease out. I think I picked up 10 of 12. I think it was a dozen we threw out.
Yeah, you was on the last one or two.
Yeah. So 10 decoys are now behind me, trailing behind. I eased over to the 11th decoy, tested the bottom with my right foot because at that point the water was up to my upper chest.
Yeah, it was almost up to your Adam's apple at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I took a step forward, my right foot, and tested the ground.
Yeah, and you failed to test.
Apparently so. It felt solid. It must have been an old rotten log because when I put my weight on my right foot, I bobbed up and down like a old pencil bobber on a brim line.
Yep. And you got cold water down the front of your waders.
I sure did. The wading belt kept the water above my waist until I got back out of the water where the pressure was no longer equalized. And it fell down the front of my britches, down my groin, all at one go, probably 2 gallons, 3 gallons of water. And do you remember what?
Yeah, I
was said?
remember what you said. I'm not saying it on this podcast, so
What was it? Oh, Lord, my Peter's done froze off.
yeah, or something to that effect. You was referencing your genitalia that was freezing. I know that much.
Yeah, I didn't care about my toes.
Did he sound like a girl when he was talking?
He went up a couple of octaves, that's for sure.
He did.
Yeah, I gave Beyonce a run for her money.
Now I don't know about that, but you was a little higher pitched than normal.
Yeah, Jay has an affinity for cold water. When he was a teenager, he left the house one day, headed to the causeway with a kayak that he had mounted a trolling motor on. It had a trolling motor battery, and he had an elevated seat. Well, when you elevate a seat on a kayak, the kayak can get a little tippy.
They already squirrely anyway on the seat that comes with them.
Yeah, so it was raining that day too. It was probably, 35, 40 degrees. It was cold. And the sun goes down, phone rings, and it's Jay. He said, hey, I need help. I don't have my car keys. I said, what do you mean you don't have your car keys? Well, I was in that kayak, and I had my decoys and my shotgun and my trolling motor and my battery, and I was headed back toward the pier, and it flipped in about, 12 foot of water.
Oh, it was in the channel off of Meir State Park right there. And
So he didn't get his car keys. I bet he had his shotgun, though, didn't he?
He had his shotgun. I think the only thing he lost was his wallet, his car keys, and his battery that powered the trolling motor.
Well, at least you got your priorities in order, Jay.
look, the first thing I grabbed when I went over was my duck. I killed one gadwall that day, my first Drake gadwall. So I grabbed the gadwall and I grabbed my gun, and I didn't care about anything else.
I went pulling up there to the landing, whatever, and Jay comes walking out, and he says, "You're not going to kill me?" I said, "No, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just glad you're not dead."
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, you're nice enough not to say it. I had to strip down to my undies and run in circles to stay warm.
I didn't need that daggum mental image, Jay. Neither did all these people listening.
Yeah, I'm sorry, folks. But and as a common theme, especially in my life hunting, in line with the first podcast that was posted, Freezing to Death with Turkey Joe, I've been cold more times than most folks out in the woods. And it's not uncommon to have to dress down and run in circles to stay warm.
I've never had to do it. Have you?
No, I had never had to do it.
Hey, we have an uncle. Well, he's passed away now, but a great uncle of mine would strip down and go swim after the ducks.
Yeah, my Uncle Bo, when we were hunting in Mississippi, there'd be ice around the edge of the trees, ice around the stumps. And between both of us, we might shoot one duck, and it might land 50 yards out in that water, and Uncle Bo was stripping down to his underwear to swim out there and get that duck. He taught me, if you kill something, you eat it. It doesn't matter how much trouble you have to go to retrieve it. That's what you do.
Well, I'm glad he taught y'all that, and I'm glad that y'all hunt with me, because I ain't stripping down to get no duck. Let y'all do that.
Yeah, I'm the only one right now in the family that'll do that, but it's a good deal. Well, how about anything else this year, Joe? Is there, I don't know of any other stories other than, well, my brain's about dead. I know there's one with Jamie. I don't know if you want to tell it or if Jamie's going to tell it, hopefully, but
You'll have to jog my memory.
there was something you guys told me about where you were up off of a particular point in the Delta and shot some teal, and there happened to be some stump holes out.
Oh, yeah. Everybody that hunts with me ends up going in the water. He was out. He's my bird dog when just he and I hunt together, and he got out there and got in a hole, and he tipped over forwards, and he didn't want to put his shotgun down in the mud because his left hand was, I forget what he had in his left hand. Anyway, he ended up having to stick his shotgun down in the mud to get himself upright because he was about to drown. So, and then about 10 minutes after that, there was a big nutria rat swam up, and he shot that nutria rat. So we took pictures with teal and nutria rats that morning. He was as wet and drowned looking as the rat.
What nutria taste like?
It's about like spotted owl, if you ever had that.
Yeah, red cockaded woodpecker.
Yeah, ivory-billed woodpecker, something like that.
Yeah, grandmother this past week was asking about those nutria rats. She sent me a picture of a truck bed full and said, "Jay, have you ever eaten any of these? What are they?" I said, "Well, that's a nutria rat. They taste about like an old greasy raccoon."
Yeah. There was a guy I saw on YouTube that was, he did a catch, clean, and cook on a nutria rat. I sent it to Jamie. I said, we should have kept that thing. He said, well, you can keep the next one.
Yeah, they're not bad. Well, Joe, I appreciate your time on here. You're a wonderful fellow. Thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you for having me. I'll talk to you later.
Next on the agenda here, we have Dr. Tim Mims, preacher man.
That's right, preacher man. Hey, glad to be here, Jay. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed over this year getting to know you and to be able to build that friendship and fellowship over duck hunting.
Yes, sir. Hey, it's been great to know you. Good to get to know you in the woods and at church. You're a tremendous Christian role model and a wonderful pastor.
Well, hey, I learned a lot of lessons this year. I grew up in the Mississippi Delta, which literally was in the middle of the flyway, and never duck hunted. Like, we had the perfect place to duck hunt, but never duck hunted,
That's unbelievable.
So it really is. I never knew what I was missing.
Yes,
I never knew
sir.
what I was missing. And so, duck hunting for me this year was really, opportunity. And then also the time, I could go early and then, go about the day. And then the other part of it is the ability to be able to communicate and talk and fellowship and, laugh and talk about life, pray together, and all those experiences. So I really enjoyed it.
Now, we didn't hit on this with Turkey Joe, and I don't think that we hit on this in any previous shows in detail. I mentioned in one little show that duck hunting is great because you can talk with one another. Yeah. But the fellowship and the camaraderie that we built this year is what is more important to me than killing any number of birds that we killed.
Oh, absolutely. My first hunt was actually an exceptional hunt. So my first time that I went, it was just an abnormal kind of hunt.
Yes.
And so I didn't know what I was in, and until we're into the hunt and I'm watching everybody's faces and everything's going on, and like after that first one, this isn't normal. And then the next hunt was pretty similar.
Yes,
and
sir.
another. So I got to wonder, is this the way it is, and it was but the lessons you learn, about life and it really is, that's the way life is, it's a lot of ebb and flow and you learn to make the most of everything, and especially the fellowship, in the midst of it, the challenges that you face, things that you endure, and being able to do that together. You know each other, share each thoughts and concerns, and then out of that, ultimately in a relationship with Christ, you grow closer. So
Absolutely.
it's good.
Yes, sir. I know praying with you guys, spending the time with you in the mornings, and being able to just share life and the complications that some of the things we've been going through this year and my family. It's been wonderful to have you there every day almost during the hunting season. Yeah. So it's been good.
Can I jump in and ask a question real quick?
Absolutely.
All right, brother Tim, you're talking about the camaraderie while we're out duck hunting and all that. I'm out there one day. I think this happened before I got there, actually, but then again, another time I was out there with you, and I looked over, and you and our buddy Jamie are swapping shotguns.
Oh, man.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So anyway, I had my shotgun, the handle. We missed it, so I'm trying to pull it out of the case, and I don't have it.
Yes,
it's not there. So I start swapping with Turkey Joe, and then we used all his shells. So long story short, Jamie had the only gun and shells left, and so actually the three of us ended up using one shotgun back and forth. Yes. And so it just again just kind of goes to the, and we had a blast. I mean, we did. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we actually limited out on that hunt, and that was my first duck hunt.
Yes, sir.
That was the first hunt.
Was that the one that we were all together on that south end where we hunt, or did you guys go alone that day?
Yeah,
Okay,
this was in out in the place out there where they blindfold you to take you back there to.
That's right. Y'all took the boat that day?
Yeah.
Yeah, to the mysterious land
Yeah,
far away.
Far away. Exactly.
Man, so that the first hunt we went on together, that morning, I remember looking up and seeing your face and Joe's face both. I think Joe was more excited than any kid I've ever seen on Christmas.
Yeah.
There were ducks everywhere.
They were. That was the thing. They were close there.
Yeah.
And the first hunt, you know, they're out there,
Yeah.
and all. So that was my first experience with them, like really coming in on you, you know, where you could hear their wings flopping, you know, and
Yes, sir.
and all of that, like breezing and then buzzing right by your head, and that same expression with Joe was the same thing I saw before, and
Yeah.
then they didn't tell me, like they just said, well, it's daylight. Well, I didn't know. Next thing you know, they start shooting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't even see a buck. You know,
Yes,
I didn't even
sir.
see a duck. I don't even, what are y'all shooting at, you know? And,
Yeah.
but it was fun.
Well, wait till next year. As far as that goes, I just learned this weekend. I haven't told you this yet. I need glasses because I have an astigmatism. So in that low light, apparently I can't see. Now, it
Yeah.
didn't stop me from shooting at something, but shooting at what I thought were ducks, but who knows what they were.
Hey, I actually have a stigmatism myself, and but you know, I'm also learning how to shoot in a better way because of duck hunting. I mean, you really, it's a different kind of shooting than it is like with dove hunting or quail or whatever. You know, it's just different. You know,
Now, Turkey Joe says, shoot where they're going, not where they've been.
that's right.
That's the hardest thing that I have to break. I mean, I'm used to deer hunting, right? You put the iron sights on the shoulder.
You put it on it and go. It's easier, you know.
and you got to be a fortune teller to tell where that
you
duck's going to go
do.
next.
You do.
So jumping towards the end of our season, there were two hunts that we talked about. One of them with Joe a little bit, but two hunts that I remember that will stick in my mind forever. On one of those hunts, we ended up finding a pink flamingo. I don't know.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah, and that's funny. It's and those are the kind of things that you experience, and you're like, how in the world did this thing get here, and where did it come from? And and life, man, life is like that. It is so many unpredictable things that come up, and you know, and and those kind of things that end up, you know, bringing color and all to our life. So
Absolutely. And I'll tell you this too, as a Christian in my walk with the Lord, all of the unpredictable things that come up, the things that catch you off guard and cause you to take a second glance at, sometimes they knock you off your feet.
oh, no
The
doubt.
only thing that's kept me upright, picked me back up by the bootstraps, has been the Lord.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. Luckily, duck hunting, we have our accountability partners, our fellow
We
hunters
really
to pick
do.
us up.
We do.
But in life, it takes that same type of relationship and a relationship with the Lord to grow.
Yeah, that was you know, my experience with hunting. I started hunting as a child. My dad carried me dove hunting. It was you know, growing up in the Mississippi Delta. That's a big deal, and you know, everybody comes together, and it's all of that camaraderie and everything, and you know, and then fishing those you know, oxbows off of the Mississippi and those kind of things early on, and so I had it in my background, and
Yeah.
then we moved to Carrollton, Mississippi, in the Bluff Hills when I was 8, and so from that point on. I mean, every day. I mean, I lived in the country. I mean, like really in the country. We're 30 minutes away from the nearest town, which was Greenwood. But we lived in the Bluff Hills, had a little land in the Delta, and my life experiences were there. I mean, everything was out in the woods every day, and so we'd walk miles to go fish. You know, swimming in those ponds and all that kind of stuff, and then, deer hunting and doing that, with my brothers and stuff and cousins, but also a lot of that, even early on as a young guy by myself. And
Yes,
so a
sir.
lot of those experiences, that just life lessons and challenges that you encounter, and you just learn through it. So it's interesting how a lot of that was preparation for the things that I would do later, as a pastor. But you encounter those kind of things on your own, and you work through it.
I have one question right quick, and we'll close out here soon and get on with Jamie, hopefully. As far as your fishing goes in the Delta, I'm
Yeah.
sure you did some crappie fishing, white perch, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call them. Do you have a preference on the name?
Well,
What do you-
not really. My dad called him crappie.
Yeah.
And I don't know. He was a crappie fisherman, and my earliest memory as a child, actually, and it was such a good memory, was a fishing trip with him. And I mean, a little fella. I don't know, how old I was, but not much more than a toddler. And we fished in Lake Washington over there in Greenville, and we walked across a dock and jumped across a place, and I remember that. And had my own he got me my own fishing hat, and had my own rod and reel and all that kind of stuff. And I remember actually catching something. I do. And then on the way back, we stopped by a place and got something to eat. And it was just me, and that was rare.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why or how that ended up happening, but it was just, I have two older brothers and a younger sister. And so it was rare for me just to be by myself with my dad, but that was one of those times. And throughout that time, crappie fishing, and then bass fishing, and we would jug fish, catfish, because that's what we did. I mean, that was our life out there in the country, and so we just looked for an opportunity to do anything like that. So
Absolutely. And now at this point, I don't know if we hit on this earlier or not, but you're the preacher, the pastor at
Yeah.
East Point Baptist Church in Spanish Fort, Alabama. Is there anything you want to plug in about our church?
Well, yeah, Jay, I'm grateful to serve as a pastor at East Point because, these are genuine people who love the Lord and desire that other people do the same. And so I'm enjoying that, serving together with so many of you and doing kingdom work. So we are about making fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ and connecting them in genuine worship and ministry and discipleship in those ways. And so, and everything we do flows out of that. And so there are many ways you can connect with us through the media, in preaching and teaching, and then our small groups that we have, a lot of those based out of affinity groups where people connect in heart and life, and there's a place for everybody. I really believe that. I think it's a place where everybody is welcome, and we all are at that place, and we take people where they are and seek to lead them and grow in their faith. Hey, whether it's online or you're down this way and traveling, we'd love to have you. Love to have you. And Easter would be a great opportunity.
Yeah, it sure would. I'll make sure we have a link to our church, to those resources in this description. And we have groups, as you mentioned, for women, for men, for young adults on Sundays and Wednesdays. I mean, there isn't a place. Well, how would you say that? There is a place for everybody. There isn't anybody that can come that will not feel welcome.
That's right. That's exactly right. I think that's at the heart, is really a true connection with people.
Yes,
where you can feel at home, and that's the thing we really makes us who we are, and that's what people say. I mean, they're that they don't just feel like they get lost, in the shuffle. They really find people that care, and they're authentic, and are fellow strugglers,
Yes, sir.
too. So,
well, thank you, Preacher Man, for your time on the show today.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We look forward to spending another year in the outdoors. Welcome, Mr. Hilbin. Now that you're here with us, I sure appreciate your willingness to attend and to take part in this show.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yes, sir. What you might know, you may not know yet, is that your name has been mentioned both in my talk with Turkey Joe and the preacher. So, preacher man threw you under the bus, but we'll get to that in a minute.
All right.
But like I said, I sure appreciate you being on the show today. We're here to talk about our duck season, and talk about our times in church. We may bring up salvation in your testimony if you're okay with that.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
And go from there. So to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you grew up and how you got to where you are in life today?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up like Joe, and the preacher grew up in Mississippi, southern Mississippi, although I did not know Joe. We were actually born at the same hospital, just a few months apart. I am his elder, and he'll let you know that from time to time. So we were both born at Forest General Hospital. I grew up in a small town called Lucedale. Hunted, fished my whole upbringing. I used to, started squirrel hunting with my grandfather and my dad, and of course then it translated to bigger game, deer, and then my favorite turkey hunting after I was into college. But I actually didn't pick up duck hunting. I had duck hunted a few times through high school and maybe middle school, but nothing too successful. And it was after we had moved here and actually following Joe around that I actually, I'd say the Lord began to cultivate a love for the sport of duck hunting and even just waterfowling in general.
Yes, sir.
I love to learn about the ducks. I love watching them work. I love it's mostly woodies here, but it's amazing to watch such a beautiful bird in flight. So yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, our duck hunting here is a bit different than it is over in Mississippi. And the preacher man talked about his time growing up in the Delta. He had ducks everywhere. He was in duck heaven, never did hunt until he was down here. Did you do any duck hunting in Mississippi? I know you weren't in the flyway, maybe.
I did. Actually, the first two ducks that I ever took were both mallards in Mississippi, and I didn't know what at the time what a blessing that was. I mean, we don't see them here. I've taken my oldest son to Tunica on a paid hunt in the not so distant past, and we shot a lot of big ducks, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah.
That's incredible. One day I'll get out there. I know this year we didn't talk about this yet, but we had plans to travel out to the Delta, and we had that big storm blow through, that massive cold front, froze everything up. So
Yeah, we did. We actually had everything arranged and had a place for us to stay. And the folks that we were staying with decided that it was too cold for them. They were leaving, and actually probably a blessing. We didn't need to be on the roads during that.
if we even made it out there, we probably would have been stuck for a week, holed up in a cabin. But
probably
it wouldn't be that big a deal. But I don't think Joe likes to cuddle all that much.
He doesn't.
Neither do I. So, well, let's jump over to your salvation story and your testimony.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in church. My dad and was always really involved. My mom, typical Sunday morning for me growing up. My mom actually played the piano. My dad led worship at one point at the small country church that we were at, and we moved to a larger church, and he served as a deacon then. But grew up around the gospel, had Christian parents. Made a profession of faith, I think, when I was 8 years old. Following my great-grandfather's passing. I remember, the Lord dealing with me about salvation at that point. And it was actually in high school, my junior year, 1997, I had a friend of mine that made a profession of faith, and that was already, I thought he was already saved, but his life radically changed. I looked at his life, and it was radically different than it was before. And watching him really shined a light on my own life as well. And so really fell under conviction then, and made a profession of faith as a junior and was baptized. And I tell folks, whether I was saved at 8 or my junior year, I'm not certain. But I know that the Lord has continued to deal with me throughout my life, and I see evidences of His work in my life, and certainly even to this day, even this morning, I tend to get off in the ditch pretty easy, and especially with my kids, and God's still good, and he's still faithful, and his grace is new and his mercy is new every day, and I'm so thankful for that.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. I know one of our main goals through this podcast, but also through spending time together in the woods, is to share the gospel and to serve as accountability partners. And I'm blessed to have you, Joe, Jamie, Dad, Cade, and everybody else we hunt with in my life. You are all Christian role models and mentors and accountability partners for me.
Yeah, amen. Amen. Me too.
Yeah, I haven't shared this on the podcast yet, but since I asked you to share yours, my testimony honestly lines up pretty close to yours. I was saved at, I believe it was 9 or 10 years old. I was in 5th grade, and I remember the day. I don't remember how old I was, but that's not saying much because at my eyeglasses appointment last week, I told the girl I was a different age than I am. So
it gets worse.
My memory doesn't function, but I was saved at that age, 5th grade. Everything was good. I knew that I was saved at that point. I felt a peace, but it wasn't until middle school and really high school at youth camp that I came to the realization that even though I had been saved and I was baptized, my life didn't necessarily reflect that change at all times. And that's not to say, like I said, I wasn't saved, but it's to say that all of the temptations that come up in middle school and especially high school with girls and other situations, anything a young high school boy can get involved in, I probably tried at some point or another, and finally came to the realization that that wasn't a reflection of that salvation that I had received, and I needed to change my life. So I, at youth camp, came forward and taught with the youth pastor and a few other counselors and rededicated my life to the Lord. From that point on, I struggle every day as everybody does, but like I said, with our hunting, but with our accountability partners as well, I know for a fact that when I do struggle, I can come to you guys and through guidance, through mentorship and sharing with you, I'm able to be brought back to the Lord and to His Word. And it's been a tremendous experience. So there's no telling where I would be without Him today. And
amen.
Preacher Man Mims threw you under the bus specifically about having to trade shotguns. There was a bad hunt where something went wrong, yeah?
Was this was this the first hunt where I was the only one that brought enough shells to actually shoot, or was this the second or third hunt when we went to the little private hole when his gun kept jamming and I took his gun away from him and just handed him mine.
It's basically, we hit on both stories. So let's start with the first one. I don't know that we went into details on the shell situation.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So the first, I always tend to over prepare in terms of bringing enough ammo. My philosophy is, I don't know which one of the which I've heard it said before. In case we have to shoot our way out, I want to make sure I got enough shells. And so I took a lot of shells. I always do. Probably because I'm not the best shot in the world. But and I like shooting. So anyway, so first morning, it was an exceptional hunt. I actually, I think we did limit out that morning, but it wasn't 5 or 10 minutes into the hunt. Of course, a woody hunt doesn't last 20, 25 minutes. 5 or 10 minutes into the hunt, I look over and the preacher's shotgun was already. I think he lost the charging handle. The charging handle wasn't on his shotgun, so we were already down to 2 guns between me and the preacher and Joe. Man. And Joe didn't. I think Joe was maybe a little overconfident. He didn't bring enough shells for himself, and they were out of shells within 5 or 10 minutes. And of course, I was the only one that had shells, so. I think we were trading my shotgun back and forth all morning long. But we did scratch out a limit, but there were a lot of ducks. It was a lot of fun. And then in the little private hole, or the little small spot we hunted early on with you guys, Tim and I were on the same tree, and I can't remember which gun he had, but maybe it was Joe's gun or maybe it was his new gun. I don't remember, but he got excited, and I think he ended up. He threw me under the bus. I'll throw him under the bus. I think he actually put a shell in back.
Oh no!
So I think that's what jammed his gun. And anyway, I took his gun away from him and gave him my gun, and I think he limited out that morning as well.
Yeah.
But I think it was with my shotgun.
Man.
And, it all good fun and all good fellowship. For
Yes,
sure.
sir. I can't say much about the shell being backwards. I know last year, there was one day in particular, I don't remember which hunt we were on. I was with you and Joe, and I think I won't say where we were. We were up somewhere where we were all blindfolded on the way in.
Yeah.
But ducks were flying pretty good. I grabbed some shells out of my little shell holder on my waders, threw them in the gun. I didn't look down that go round, and the gun at that time that I had was fairly new to me. Threw a shell in backwards as well, and it took a full disassembly to get that thing out. Missed a few birds that flew in, but so much for better, I guess.
That's just all part of the memories. That's the things that we log away and can reflect on and talk about.
Yes, sir.
Just like this. So good stuff.
There was another story that was alluded to about your falling into the water.
Oh my gosh, which time? There was like 3 different times I fell this year, and I've done good the last 3 or 4 years, but I think the one you're alluding to, Joe and I were together in a spot, and it's timber hunting, but there's a good portion of the spot we were hunting that was open water and kind of marshy.
Yes.
And there was a beaver run. Running along the edge of the place we were hunting, and Joe has had some back issues this past fall, and I knew it was going to be fairly strenuous to get out and actually get the duck, and of course I'm always up for that. So I volunteered to go out and retrieve the ducks. You weren't with us, otherwise you would have done it. So this was one of those mornings I definitely always wish you were there, but definitely wish you would have been there that morning. And anyway, shot the duck, and the duck was out probably 100 yards, and I started wading out into the pond, and my foot got caught in a root, and it was probably only 2 feet deep. It wasn't extremely deep, maybe 3 feet. Yeah. And I tripped, and when I went down, I tried to catch myself with my left arm, and my shotgun was in my right hand, and my left arm went all the way up to my elbow in the mud. No. And so my head was like barely just above the water, like my nose was like water level, and my shotgun was above my head, and I could not get solid foundation with my left hand to push my head back above the water, and so the only thing I could do was submerge my gun completely in the water and push myself up. And of course, my waders filled up with water, and this was one of those mornings when it was rather cool, and it took quite a bit for me to warm back up. I think it was probably noonish that day before I had got my core body temperature back up. But good fun. We all had a good laugh, and Joe didn't have to save me, so it was good.
I sure am glad you made it out. It's terrifying sometimes falling in.
I never really got it. It can be, yeah. I never really got like overly concerned that, oh my goodness, this is terrible. I was more really, I didn't want to get my gun wet, and have to deal with that. It needed to be clean anyway. So
yes, sir. Are there any more memories you have from this season that you'd like to share? It's pretty.
Man, so many mornings, just God's grace and beauty on display. That's one of my favorite things about duck hunting is I think Joe had mentioned it was the social aspect, and getting to hang out with my brothers and my children too. I was fortunate enough for my oldest son to hunt with us a good bit this year, and my youngest son hunted with us a few times, and so it's good to see them cultivate that same love for the outdoors and God's creation, and respect for the animals that He gave us to enjoy and to conserve. So, just all around, just a great year, and looking forward to turkey season now, and working bees. So it's spring. Spring is here. So yes, I'm excited about the next season now.
Oh, for sure. The turkey season, our turkey hunt's coming up, and the beekeeping. I don't have plans yet to talk about beekeeping officially, but we don't have any bees now. In the future, I'd like to get you back on and talk more on that with our experiences and yours. And turkey season, I was chastised a little bit that I hadn't put out any turkey content yet by one of our buddies, but that'll happen in time. this podcast has been an adventure, and trying to hit all of the topics in a timely manner I thought would be a challenge. And it's a challenge not because we don't have content at this point, but because there's so much we can talk about that narrowing it down is a chore. But
Right, you've done a great job. I've enjoyed listening to the podcast, and I was wanting to go to Wyoming this next fall, but listening to the podcast really affirmed that I've got to commit and go. So I'm excited about that upcoming
yes, sir.
adventure as well.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Now, one more topic with you, and we'll send you on your way. You are now the proud owner of Three Arrows Butcher Shop in Spanish Fort. So would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like yourself, like your dad, I was an engineer. I've done that for the last 20 years or so, and I've had a good career. The Lord's been good there. But honestly, the last 5-6 years, I was traveling. I was a corporate engineer, so I'm spending a lot of time away from home, and our 3 kids, which, our 3 Arrows, the name for the shop, spending a lot of time away from them. And so my wife and I began to plan, well over a year and a half ago, and pray about potentially what we might do next. And this concept of a local butcher shop really resonated, primarily because, it's the way we grew up. We grew up, processing our own game, doing all of that. And I really love the business aspect as well, and wanted to recreate some of the family atmosphere that I grew up around, and enjoy at some of the local places here. So yeah, resigned in June, and we launched in October, and it's going well.
It's a beautiful shop, and everything, at least everything we've purchased, has been high quality. It's tremendous, and it's a blessing to be able to talk with you and your workers. It sure enough seems to be a business blessed by the Lord. Is there anything else about your shop that you would like to share with us?
No, I don't. I mean, yeah, come see us. We would love to serve you. We do have a lot of local and regional products. That was one of the other aspirations of the store, is to highlight local vendors, but also regional vendors. Most of the beef we get comes from the upper Midwest, but a lot of the other items in the shop, whether it's the Havens Dairy ice cream, that's from my hometown, to some of the other items that we have in the store, is a lot of local regional stuff. So
You guys heard it right here. Come pay Jamie a visit, and you'll be welcome like family. Jamie, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to spending more time with you out in the woods and in life in general, living life with you.
My pleasure, Jay. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
The key takeaways from this week's episode are as follows. That silver, platter-sized schooling fish we all dearly know and love, it is officially called a crappie, based on Preacher Man's raising. A shotgun is a specially designed tool that can not only bring you a limit of ducks, but it can be used as a boat paddle or, in an emergency, a life safety device to get you unstuck from the mud. And finally, Nutri-Rat is a tasty and nutritious meal for folks of all ages. Real talk, though, thank you dearly to all of you men who are willing to come on the show and discuss our duck hunting season and your own personal stories with us. It is, without a doubt, a uniform staple in all of our lives that we focus on the Lord Jesus Christ above all else. As I have stated many more times than you might care to hear, I am deeply grateful for all of the Christian friends and leaders in my life that keep me on the right track. It's a blessing to have men that understand that this leadership works both ways, and we keep each other accountable, we keep each other in line. Our experiences and our life choices lead us and shape our future, and we invite you to tag along with us at church. I guarantee that you will never find such a caring, welcoming, and loving group of folks such as those at East Point Baptist Church. We also invite you to visit Three Arrows Butcher Shop in Spanish Fort, Alabama, located just off of Highway 31. Jamie and his family have put together a business centered around family and friendships, and you will be blessed merely by visiting his store to talk with them. I sure hope that you've enjoyed this week's episode. We have talked a lot this week about many different topics. In the show description, I've put links to East Point Baptist Church, as well as social media links to the Three Arrows Butcher Shop. If you have any questions, comments, or input, please reach out to me via Spotify Podcast, Apple Podcast, or any other podcasting service that you might use. I've put links to my Instagram and Facebook page in the show description, and I can be reached through these as well. If you have enjoyed our content, please drop us a line on these platforms and share our stories with your family and friends. Love in Christ.